Perfect. Just so I know all the players here. Mark, hey, Mark, long time no see. Um, Tracy Hart. I don't know who that is.
She is good. She's the one that's making a public comment during the hearing.
Just so I okay. Know all the players here. Amy's phone. Long time no see. Tracy Hart.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know who that is.
She is good. She's the one that's making a public comment during the hearing.
So okay. Amy's phone.
That's kind of strange. We're getting this delayed repeat.
Who's Amy's phone?
Amy is the one with Mark Staples.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What was that?
Amy is with Mark.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Roll call's done. I'd like to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Planning Commission. Again, we are excusing Gary Boatwright. He had a family emergency come up. Hopefully he can join us later. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Kim, are you ready for the flag?
I am.
Awesome. Tim, are you ready to lead us?
I'm so ready.
All right, I'll let you have it.
All right, if you'll stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of
the United States
of America
and to the republic
for
which it
which
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is public comment. I believe we have one individual. Is that right, Kim?
That's correct.
Okay. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes or less. State your name and address for the record, please. Direct the comments to the entire commission and note that the Planning Commission will not respond during the public comment period. So Tracy, you are
Hi there.
on.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Only one public comment, huh? Wow. So I live a few houses away from this property, apparently within 300 feet, according to the notice that I received in the mail. So my main concern with this is really all the negative things I've been reading on the South Weber Citizens United website about the other such property in South Weber. And in that property, the neighbors are posting that the Airbnb causes a lot of chaos in that neighborhood. They're dealing with wild all-night parties, gunfire in the middle of the night, things like that, which, that's pretty concerning. And within 300 feet, that would, be a problem for us and neighbors that we live around. So we've lived in our house for over 30 years. We raised our kids here. It has always been a family-friendly place, and we want it to remain that way. I don't believe our neighborhood was intended for short-term rentals, where people from other places kind of blow in and out. They're here for just a couple of nights. Most travelers aren't invested in the neighborhood like residents who live here would be. So I do have a few questions, and I hope that these can be answered. I've expressed my concerns. So my questions are, one, did the property owner obtain a business license prior to opening and running an Airbnb, which is basically a hotel for the most part? Two, is the business license specific to a short-term rental that allows for very short-term lengths of stay? And three, why are we just now hearing about this? I live within 300 feet of this property, and I had no idea it was being run as a short-term rental. I wouldn't have known. So I don't know. It seems like that's something that neighbors in close proximity maybe should have had a little bit of a heads up or something, just so we were aware. I want to have a safe neighborhood for my family, and for families that live around me. We want to be able to walk our kids, walk our dogs, and not be concerned about our neighborhood with, travelers. And we've all been travelers, but there's just, little investment when you're not residing in a place. So anyway, those are my concerns. Those are my questions. That's
Sure.
all I have. Thank you.
You bet. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hopefully through the process of the meeting, you'll understand what we've got going on. We don't usually respond to public comment during the public comment period. There's just too much of it sometimes. But I will tell you that the part of this public hearing on that particular short-term rental is for a business license / conditional use permit. The city about a year and a half ago allowed Airbnbs to go into any zone within the city. And so that was an ordinance that the city council made, the current city council. And so so any resident can have an Airbnb. Your experience has been very lucky, and that's what we expect is when we see an Airbnb that it doesn't impact the neighborhood. So you wouldn't know if there was an Airbnb or there or not, because they are operating quietly, and that's what we really want. But the city saw a need about a year and a half ago, again, to have a ordinance in place so that Airbnbs can be regulated. And once you have a game going, right, then we can count balls and strikes. And if there's problems, there's some teeth that the city can do. So that's where we're at. So Ms. Drake is applying for that. And so we'll get into that as we get into the course of the meeting. Hopefully that answers some questions. Now I stepped way out of bounds. I apologize, but just wanted to make sure you knew that. So
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to approve the agendas of the minutes of 2020-06-03, 2020-06-11, 2020-07-09, and 2020-07-14. I assume the commission's had a chance to review those minutes.
Rob, I'd like to make a comment on the June 11th, 2020 agenda minutes. The
Okay.
Attachment that Amy Mitchell sent in to us, I would really like to award her for her efforts in putting that together, giving a demonstration of what we potentially could see on the Stevens property. She went to a lot of effort. I think she needs some recognition for what she submitted as part of the package on that.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the commission?
I didn't have any, Rob.
Thank you, Tim.
I didn't.
Taylor?
Yeah.
All right, that looked good to me. I look for a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion to approve by Wes, second by Taylor for the 4 meeting minutes. Roll call, Taylor,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Wes,
Aye.
and I as well. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Harvest Park Phase 3 final recommendation located at approximately 700 East, 6750 South, parcel 13-275-0020, 8.66 acres. Barry, I guess you get to be the guy on tap here.
Okay, I'm just trying to pull up those comments from myself and from Brandon. Basically, this this is phase 3 of a development that we started some time ago, and it was originally going to be a 2-phase development, but due to some some things that came up involving Old Fort Road, it became a 3-phase development, and we talked a little bit about that when the second phase came in some time ago. But in any case, the lot layout, lot sizes, everything matches the preliminary plan that was plat that was approved. And there were some, at the time I wrote my review, there were some omissions on the plat itself. Those have since been corrected. And Brandon's got a few issues in his review of that development, but essentially it's ready to go. There's nothing wrong with it other than a few minor details, and those can be referenced by referencing Brandon's review.
Okay.
Just for the record, our engineer sent those revisions at 5 o'clock. So
Okay.
I apologize to all of you for that, but I just wanted you to know we try to be really responsive in that regard.
Okay.
Okay.
Does the commission have any questions or comments?
What about the rattlesnakes over in that area? We've had some comments about the rattlesnakes in the patio homes there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I hadn't heard that.
It's in our project.
Yeah, so Barry, you said that they've completed everything on your list.
On my list, everything was completed. It came in about a day or so after I had done my review. So yeah, they've completed those items.
Okay, so I wanted to understand, so there are 2 street names that need to be decided and added. So did we decide on street names, or is that clear
Well,
now?
the developer decides on the street names, and they have been decided and added.
I just know that Brandon had some comments on the names of the streets, so
Oh yeah.
do we need to?
We fixed those.
Those, I don't know if those have been fixed. I haven't had a chance to review the newly submitted plats.
I mean, just basically Pebble Creek Drive needs to be the stub road continuing east. It's currently labeled as River Way. And then
Yeah.
the longer north-south road labeled as Pebble Creek needs to be a different name, perhaps
We
River
flipped
Way.
Yeah, that's
So-
because Pebble Creek, there's an existing Pebble Creek that stub is supposed to tie into.
So Pebble Creek needs to, on the map, change to River Way? And the
No.
River
Yes.
Way needs to
Well,
change
it
to
needs to
Pebble
be
Creek.
changed to something else, but it can't be Pebble Creek,
Okay.
but a
I'm
different
trying
one.
to understand when I'm looking at the plat, the one I have in front of me, the stub that goes to the east is labeled River Way. And is Brandon saying that needs to be changed to Pebble Creek?
Yes. Yes, that's what he's saying.
Okay, so even though the road appears to continue towards the south, it actually needs to be labeled as if it's going east.
Yeah, the one going east needs to be Pebble Creek Drive.
Which would
Because-
match Pebble Creek Drive that's coming in
from the west.
from the north. It's just a little confusing to me.
Really confusing.
The changes have all been made. Per
Okay.
Brandon Hill. The stub road is now Pebble Creek Drive.
Okay,
The north-south road is now River Way.
okay.
So we've made both of those changes.
Is
So
there still
the
a short
road though,
street?
that's on the north end, that's coming from, I guess, is it phase 1?
Yes.
It's labeled Pebble Creek and that stays Pebble Creek.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So is there still a short street? I was confused on that one.
That's a great name, isn't it?
Right. I'm just wondering who has frontage on Short Street.
316,
316 Will?
315, 316. Anything that faces that, those two corner lots specifically.
Okay.
Okay. Tim, do you have any other questions on addresses
No,
or street names? I'm sorry, because I had some questions on easement. I think in the approval letter, or I'm sorry, in the recitals of the plat, we talk about identifying all the applicable easements that are going to be on here, and I'm just finding two. And correct me if I'm wrong, we might need some additional easements. So we have, sorry, my connection is just terrible. I'm trying to get to the different utilities that will be on site. So bear with me, I apologize. So Comcast, is there going to be an easement associated with them?
They're in the public right of way. So they're in the street.
Okay. So the assumption is as soon as they get to that public right of way, we won't see any easements on the plat.
Correct.
And they stay in the public right of way from within the boundary of the plat.
There should be on the plat a 10-foot PUE on all front yards. And within
and there is. Yeah.
there is. And within that, typically the power and Comcast go. The gas goes in the park strip, and everything else is out in the asphalt.
Okay. And then you have the sewer easement coming through maybe the west side of the development, right?
It connects through that knuckle in phase 3.
All right. So lots 312, 313, and then sorry, my computer is really struggling. I just want to make sure I accounted for all of them. There's one on the northeast part, correct? There's a 20-foot power easement.
Yeah, there's an existing power line that goes through there, and that's where the wire goes. And then there's
Okay.
a pole that's right in the park strip of Pebble Creek Drive extension, right at the property line. So that's what that easement is.
But the power pole is not listed on the plat as we see it, right?
Well, it's in the right of way of 326 in the northeast corner.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate you helping me understand those. I just want to make sure we were accounting for all of them because it was a requirement. So, and then let's see. I apologize. This is terrible. I had questions on the basement table. There, you had mentioned that needed to be added, or
There was a table on there. It just wasn't populated with all the basement elevations, and that has been taken care of now. Those are on there.
okay. And then, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's on page 2. There's 2 pages to the plat.
It's on page 2. So it's not the basement table that I see on sheet 1 of 1.
It is on sheet 1 of 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 of 2. I apologize. 1 of 2.
Yeah.
This basement table.
Yeah. So is that any different?
No, it didn't have the figures in it when I wrote my report, but it does now.
Okay. Fair enough. And then within the narrative on that point, it talks about a letter from, I think it was 6 August 2020. And I was just curious on what that letter was. It had reference to the geotech report, and since we don't have the geotech report in front of us, I was curious to know what the groundwater or water table was in this particular site.
Oh, okay. Um, I might have to go call that up. Let me see if I can find that quickly.
Practical experience, the water table has changed quite a bit since that report, both up and down.
Yeah, I can't recall, is there a land drain in this phase?
We put a land drain in phase 1 and 2, and we'll come back if we need to add it, because we're not going to build in a situation where we don't have a good foundation drain. But
Right.
it wasn't required, and it wasn't in our preliminary approval either. So
Right. No, and I had questions on one of the comments that Barry had, that the phase 2 preliminary approval had changed from the one that we had originally seen, and he kind of answered that for me, Barry, for the most part. But was it just the phasing issues between the plats is what was being addressed, or are there other substantive changes?
Well, no, the change was because, the city had agreed, subsequently got into an agreement with the developer to finish Old Fort Road. And in order to get the second access out onto Old Fort Road, they needed to develop some of those lots, I think, prior to them being ready to develop the whole rest of the subdivision. So they just did a small phase. I don't know what was 4, 5, 6 lots, something like that. Mark, maybe you can fill them in on that, but
that's correct. It was just
and it tied gave an access right onto Old Fort Road, rather than having just one access from Riverside Place subdivision. So it gave them their second access, and everything is according to the approved preliminary plat. It's just that they wound up phasing just slightly different than was originally envisioned.
I appreciate you being patient with me on that one. I meant to reach out to you during the week, but I didn't have the opportunity, where I just wanted to understand what the difference was. So again, thanks for being patient with me on that. And I just didn't know if we had discussed anything about the groundwater issue within the phase 2 preliminary.
We looked at all of that in the preliminary, and I'm looking at the report right now to try and find groundwater levels somewhere in here. I know what's in here.
And I just wanted everybody to know, I sent an email out just now with the link to the updated files that they had sent in, the most recent ones, in case they weren't part of the packet. Now you can access them.
Okay, I've got the map indicating the locations of groundwater. They did a total of 9 test pits, and I'm not sure what depth they went to exactly. I haven't seen that in here yet, but I think normally it's about 15 feet. So they encountered groundwater in only 3 of the 9 test pits, and they were ranged from 8.3 feet to 9.8 feet where they encountered groundwater.
Okay.
Let's see, they went to 11 feet, I guess, is how far down they were going with those test pits.
Patience on that. And then I had one other question. With the utility notification form, you mentioned that CenturyLink was non-applicable. Can you tell me why?
CenturyLink said that they couldn't provide service in that area.
Okay.
That's just their decision. I don't know why.
No, perfect. And I was just looking for a reason. So if they're telling us that we can't do it, great. That's what
Yep.
I'm curious about.
Anything else, Taylor?
Well, I don't want to monopolize all the time here. Wes, do you have anything? No, I'm good.
Okay. I have a question, Mark. You ready? It's gonna blow you away.
Buckle up.
Dog park, man. When's the dog park gonna get done?
Well, we heard that all dogs have been moved to West Haven. So there was no need for a dog park, but no.
Okay.
We have a meeting on Monday to discuss the trail alignment. The dog park, in terms of the detention basin, is finished. The topsoil's been put in. Now what we're looking to do is make sure we're on the same page with the alignment of the trail. We're going to do that on Monday, and then there it should be, we've got to get an irrigation plan put together, and we're going to have our landscaper just talk directly with the city, to put that together.
So it'll be done Labor Day?
I don't know when Labor Day is, spring or fall.
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 Coming right up. 3 weeks.
No.
Okay. All right.
Remember, this is government work.
No, you're private. You're private, Mark. You can work faster.
I'm working with government. No, we had to take a lot of rock out. There's no excuses. It's just been slower than we thought. We're gonna stay right on it though until we get it done.
I know that the city council has received some questions from some citizens. One, about when it's going to be done, and two, that they want to make sure as many trees stay in there. And I'm pretty sure that's your guys' goal as well. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, with the size of the detention basin, because it became, instead of a project detention basin, it became more regional. So it got expanded. And so you can thank, I won't say Brandon for that, but anyway, it got a little bit bigger. So on the very south end, these have, by necessity been taken out, but on the very, what I'd call the northwest side, it's going to be really nice. And the side closest to the Posse ground, we haven't had to impact that very much. So trail, that's why we want to meet, is to discuss trail alignment so that we can either preserve, so that the city is signing off on where the trail is going to go.
sure. Okay. I just know there's a lot of questions on that.
So the mayor has emailed me, I promise, and I've responded to her and to Brandon and others.
Okay. Perfect. So I'll hold you to that Labor Day.
Is that going to impact the pickleball courts?
Well, in addition to the rec center, it's.
You put in a pool in too, Mark? Hey,
Well-
dang nice of you.
We have soccer fields.
Oh, shoot. Are there any more questions from the Plan Commission on the Harvest Park? If not, I'd look for a motion from somebody.
Yeah, Barry, where's our street lights? I don't see them on here. And they're probably on the construction.
Yeah,
they're
they
not-
would be they're on the construction drawings.
Did we get them at the intersections? Just at that Pebble Creek and Riverway, and then the Cobblestone Drive on the short street. We've got a couple of intersections there that probably ought to have some street lights. Just want to make sure they're on there.
Well, they are. That's one of the things that Brandon reviews, and he did not flag anything there, so I'm assuming that they're there.
We'll make sure they're there.
All right, I'll make it part of the motion just to make sure they verify.
Perfect. Then I would encourage you to make a motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion. What are we doing here? Is it, I'll make a motion to recommend final approval of Harvest Park Phase 3, subject to both the planner, Barry Burton, and Brandon Jones engineering letters dated October 6, 2020. In addition, verify that we have street light.
Excuse me, just the date?
I'm sorry, 8/6/20. I don't know where I came up with October.
Okay.
Oh, Timmy wants this year to get done so
Yeah.
fast, he's already pushed ahead.
That is for sure. 8/6/20 on both those letters. And then also to verify that we have the street lights located at the intersections of Pebble Creek Drive and Riverway and Cobblestone Drive and Short Street. That's it.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, Taylor,
Aye.
Wes,
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
I as well. So moving forward to the city council.
Thank
for
you.
the recommendation for approval. Thank you, appreciate you guys. From what I could tell, it's a nice project down there, so,
We hope so.
okay, very good. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is a public hearing and action on a short-term rental conditional use for Snow Basin Detention operated by Lori Drake located at 2345 East, 8100 South. I'm not quite sure how to do the public hearing part. We did hear from Ms. Hart, as well as we did receive some emails. Kim, who are those from? Do you recall? I forget.
I believe there's 2 of them. Give me 1 second and I will tell you.
I just want to recognize those for the minutes.
Absolutely. Lonnie and Lynette Winterton.
Okay,
And
I saw
then
that one.
we got one from Tina and Gary Sanzone.
Okay, yep, that was the other one I read as well. Okay, so I considering where we're at, and I think we've heard, I'd like to move on to discussion of a short-term rental. Is Lori on?
Yes, she's on under Aaron Drake's name. That's her son.
Hi, am I audible yet with you? This is
You
Aaron
are.
Drake.
You
All right.
are.
and I don't know if you can see me, but I'm
We
not
can
much
see
to be
ya.
seen. Okay.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
Rob,
Yes.
don't-
Yes. Sorry,
I
Michelle.
don't know if, and maybe Barry or Kim knows, I don't know if legally you have to open a public hearing.
You do. You have
Yeah.
to open and close it, even if there's no other comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even if there's no comments, and then you can say no comment, but I will include in the minutes that there were 2 emails submitted, but I think legally you have to have a motion to open a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification, because I'm not quite sure in these days of Zoom how all this works. Thank you.
Rob, I'll make that motion to open the public hearing on the short-term rental conditional use for Snow Basin Destination.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the ayes have it. Again, mentioning that we have the public comment for the public hearing, those emails. Thanks, Michelle.
Can I just clarify
Recognize that.
some-
Yes.
something, Rob? I
Please.
just want to ask Kim, is there anybody, so we've had no requests for inclusion in this public hearing from the public, from anyone in the public at this point in time, Kim?
Just the one that's already spoken.
Just
She
the one.
spoke ahead of time instead of during the public hearing, but
Okay.
that was it.
But
Okay,
it's the same,
wanted to
it's the
clarify that.
same, just so everybody knows out there in YouTube land that it's the same, as if she'd done it during this part of the public hearing as well. So, because the same things would still apply. So, okay, am I okay to close the public hearing? Someone
I
help
think-
me?
I think you're okay.
Okay,
Yeah, subject to having received those comments already received during the meeting today, and then also the letters that we received from those citizens, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Oh, he did. I'm aye. Everybody's ayed. Okay, good. Right. Now we'll go to Aaron. Where's
ready?
your mom? Is she too chicken to get online?
Well, you might, her mother passed away less than 48 hours ago at
Oh,
an
that's
assisted
terrible.
living center in Layton at Fairfield Village.
Oh.
And so
it's terrible to hear.
she's with me. She's in the room, but she does not feel like appearing, and definitely not publicly. So if it's all right if I just speak for her, that's how she'd prefer to proceed. And I said, yeah, I'll do that for you, Mama.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. That breaks my heart. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, these are tough times to lose a family member for sure.
Yeah, it makes it more difficult for sure. So
Very different.
so we know that your mom's submitted application. There have been some frustrations in the past with some of these things that happened in January. But other than that, it sounds like some neighbors didn't even know that there was an Airbnb going on, which is really what we like to hear.
Right.
I know Chris went through with your mom on the property. You got anything to report, Chris?
No, just everybody should have had my report that I turned in to Kim, stating the
Okay.
the amount of parking and the amount of sleeping areas, and as well as that I had gone over information with Miss Drake about the just about the ordinances of the ordinance of the city regarding short-term rentals. And we, she was very receptive of them. She did realize that there's some definite ways that she can improve, but most importantly, she's going to stay in communication with me. Keep that in regards. Call me, all the time. We can go from there, just as long as we can keep that open line of communication to be able to work forward.
Okay. I've kind of lost track. I apologize, but I think this is our fifth or sixth Airbnb.
I
Fifth?
believe
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so other than the one that everybody knows about, they have been doing very well under our ordinance. Is that correct, Chris?
That is correct. We've had small things, but in regards to, it's when you compare it with all the other residential properties and everything else, it's, the complaints are complaints, and we take all of them serious, and we try to make it nice for neighbors. And there's going to be misunderstandings, and there's going to be disagreements and everything like that. And so, Mrs. Drake's been willing to work with me whenever I brought something up to her regarding her property.
Great. Aaron, do you know, has your mom had people in the property longer than 30 days?
Well, there was technically an intern that was there, and full disclosure here. So I live in the neighborhood as well. I think none of us knew that having somebody rent your basement was in violation of code, because pretty much everybody does it in the neighborhood. And that's just an honest disclosure from me and from her this summer there were two interns from Northrop Grumman that came from out of state that stayed there for about 8 weeks. So quite honestly, yes.
Okay. And just so you understand, that isn't going to hold up this, but in the subdivision that you're in, I'm in, a lot of people are in, they're all single family residences. And so if they start renting out basements, they become duplexes, which is not legal. You can have family members, blood, rent a downstairs. So if you
Right. So I've
downstairs,
learned
that-
about
that
the
works.
definition of a family. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talk about in politics the definition of a family. Well, it's different in South Weaver.
I know. And so, I mean, that's why the question comes up. And so-
I understand. Yeah.
so-
So Lori's learned a lot in this last period of getting the ordinance up and learning the ordinance and applying and meeting all
Yeah.
the criteria. There's a learning curve there.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, and that's just, it's just, when we created the ordinance, you can't stop Airbnb. It's almost like food trucks. It's the same thing. We had to create an ordinance for food trucks because we have to regulate it somehow and we have to know how to deal with it. And once we know how to, we have the rules in place, everybody knows how to play the game, right? And so that's all we're trying to do. The ordinance does say that any zone in the city can have an Airbnb. And so that's not in question. The only thing that the Planning Commission asks is that you come in and apply for a conditional use permit, and then we put conditions on the Airbnb. And it's not anything too prohibitive, but it's just so everybody knows the game that's expected to be played. And
Right.
so,
Well, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
so one of the things we're going to ask you about is number of people that can be in the Airbnb. How many beds, right? And what's the capacity for bedrooms? And well, let's just start with that. So there's 3 bedrooms, if I read it right.
Three total bedrooms.
So total of 6 guests.
No more than 6.
No more than 6. Okay.
Correct. And
So-
there never has been more than 6.
Okay. So that's going to be one of the conditions, that there's no more than 6 that they rent in the Airbnb.
Right.
Again, the idea here is we want the neighbors not to even know there's an Airbnb going on. That is the most ideal. And so that's where we're headed. The other thing is, let's see, no more than 6. Can the commission help me remember the other conditions that we were looking at for Airbnbs? I'm sorry.
You generally looked at parking, what the parking
Parking.
situation was.
Yep, that's right. And Aaron, how many stalls do you have for guests?
Actually, 4.
You have 4?
Right.
Oh,
4.
wow.
And I know so Kim emailed me the 19-page complaint that'll be part of the public record, and I've reviewed that. She's reviewed it. First and foremost, our sincere apologies to her neighbors, and lessons have been learned, and it has been an inconvenience. She understands that and admits that and apologizes and we'll try to make amends. But one of the things that she can state now definitively is there's plenty of parking on site, not on a driveway, and she can commit to no guest ever parking on the road, winter or summer. Even though there's no prohibition, guests theoretically could park on the road, but she will commit to having them park on the driveway only.
Okay. And that really works out to keeping it less intrusive to the neighbors. But you're right. And during the summer months, yeah, you can park on the road for sure. We certainly understand that.
Yeah, but again, part of making this so the neighbors don't notice it is just keep it in the driveway, right? Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have renters that park their cars in front of our houses. I do.
Mhm.
I've got it.
I get it. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
We all get it, and we got to be flexible, I think.
Sure. Yep. No, I understand. Anything else from the commission, please?
I think one of the the comment we got earlier is from Miss Hart, is that she didn't even know it was there. And until she got the notice for the review by the Planning Commission. I know we've got 2 Airbnbs just down the road from us, and you can't even tell that what they are. They're just residential houses. And as long as they're complying with the code that the city's put together, I don't see any problem whatsoever.
Okay.
So I did have some questions, right?
Okay. Go ahead.
I know in the one public comment that we received, there was issue with people coming and going on other people's property. And this is probably more a conflict with our code, potentially. And I know, given the location of the driveway and where it is in proximity to the neighbor's yard, it's a hard thing to keep people out of another person's grass and property. But I didn't for that, where we do talk about trespass. And so I guess the question that I'm really having is I'm looking at the aerial image of the home, and is there really enough parking for 4 vehicles there? And to allow ingress and egress for your mother in her own garage?
Right.
And Chris, I guess that's more of a question for you, since you've been on the site and looked at it.
Yeah, so there's 4, and my reasoning on that would be one of those parking stalls would be for Ms. Drake.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, can I, Chris, I know you've observed it, but there's the side, and 2 cars can stack up there.
Yeah.
And then she's actually had tenants park inside the garage. It's a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
So she's had tenants park in the garage, and then one more can park behind on the outside of the garage, but on the main driveway. So that's where we get the 4 from. And then that means she still parks in her own garage on the right side of the 3-car garage.
Yeah, that's my fault. I'm sorry. I do.
It's a little deceiving because a lot of the Airbnb people don't let their tenants park in their garage, but she allows it.
That's right.
Sure.
And I can adjust my report if I need to. I saw those videos as well as the tenants were getting out of their vehicles and onto the lawn and different things like that. And it's one of those things that affects me personally, and I get it. And my recourse was to, either put up some landscaping that's there that borders the property, or a fence that borders the property. But I do understand the concern that they had, and there was enough room if they were conscientious about it. And maybe that's something that since we're talking about this, that we could put in that book, as the tenants are getting ready to rent the property. Maybe they get that information before they even arrive on site, that they could be mindful of those courteous neighbors and be mindful of their property. And instead of putting it in our book, that we actually give it to them before they arrive on site. So.
And Lori's already incorporated that. I don't, honestly, until we got that 19-page complaint from Kim today, we didn't know the extent of, because you don't always know exactly when your tenants are coming and going, and she didn't know really that like they had a Nerf gun war on the neighbor's front yard. Well, yeah, that's not right. So that needs to be fixed. So, but even before that, she'd already incorporated into her practice very specific instructions to anybody who's even thinking of renting it, and certainly that does, that, hey, you've got to respect the neighbor's property. You can't even walk on their grass. But also, we're looking at options. I know she mentioned she's looking at options for a fence, and she can talk to the Sanzones about that, because it's kind of like, well, it's been kind of nice through the years to not have a fence there. But maybe if that's something that would be mutually beneficial, that could be looked at. I know the code doesn't necessarily require it, but if it solves problems between neighbors and makes people feel better and forces people to respect property, then that's something Lori's willing to do.
I figured that was more civil matter.
That exact point. And then to the point, I think what we're experiencing here is this is a different use than what was contemplated when the subdivision was put in. And so we're struggling through how we make this use compatible with what's existing. And the fence thing, if it was me and if it was coming to us as a brand new item, and we have in essence a different use adjacent to another use, we probably would require a fence. Not saying that that's going to be part of the condition, But I think that goes a long way to your comment, to try to make sure that that use of an Airbnb is seamless within the neighborhood and hardly anybody will ever know that it's there. So I appreciate you addressing that one.
Could I talk to you about one other aspect of Airbnb that might help the city and the commission understand a little more about this and the problem, but also the solution? Some people look at Airbnb as a social thing, as an activity. And for example, Lori hosted a party for her tenants and their friends who also worked at Northrop Grumman, who just got to come, and that's also certainly her right as a property owner. But for some people, they run an Airbnb because they like to have all sorts of people come through their home, and they like to meet them, and they sit on the deck and they talk to them. And I'm not saying that's what Lori is, but I'm saying that is one aspect of Airbnb that the city's got to reconcile, to say, okay, there's a social aspect to this. Parties will be had, property will be used as the homeowner feels appropriate. But with respect to the neighbors, certainly. But so even she just said, well, I mean, even a couple weeks ago, I had the kids out. I was with them in the backyard. I cooked for them. We barbecued. We played badminton. And I hope that neighborhoods wouldn't be so restrictive that kind of social engagement couldn't happen.
No, I think we have our own noise ordinance laws and nuisance laws that define that. So we feel comfortable that those ordinances will cover those situations.
I just
so
wonder
I
how many
appreciate you bringing it up.
How many Nerf gun wars we've had throughout the city by individuals in neighborhoods that don't have an Airbnb. You know, we got kids all over the place that are running around from one yard to the other with Nerf guns, and we don't hear complaints from the neighbors about it. Do we, Chris?
No, it's one of those comments that I stay away from.
Not typically, Wes, but then of course you typically do know your neighbors,
sure,
and you recognize them. And so I think that might be the big difference here is, you know, you're not familiar with the people. They're just here for a day or two. And so
well, the one thing here is that Lori has stated that she will be in residence there full time.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, for me, that's key.
That's
and
a very positive point.
Yes, as I look at this and you know, had we you know, gotten this and it was a first time, had not been operated as an Airbnb at all, I think we just would do the typical restrictions on the number of beds and occupants and move forward subject to our ordinance. But we have had some complaints. This has operated. So I would still require, you know, that it's subject to the ordinance, but we've had some complaints. So maybe we can address those now and just say, yeah, she's offered the fact that she's going to live there full time. And I think that's a requirement that she continues with this particular Airbnb, that she occupies the residence full time. And then also just that trespass issue, if she could do, whether it be decorative or some sort of a boundary fencing, something that just helps to designate and prevent trespass from the yard onto the neighbor. If the neighbor is willing to let that go, then let's not do it. But if they're not going to release that, then I think that needs to be a requirement that we have some sort of a, you know, some sort of perimeter fencing, you know, just short decorative or bedding that would prevent them from typically running across that direction, in my opinion, just because of the complaint that we've already received. So let's address that and stay on top of it.
Aaron, is that that's in the book that's inside that you show the tenants, right? Of the rules of the place?
It is. It's definitely in there, but it's let's just say it's highlighted now. Is what he's told me.
Yellow highlight, yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there've been some bad tenants and lessons learned. I mean, for example, guys, you don't Airbnb your basement to somebody who has less than 3 reviews on Airbnb. That was the really bad one over the winter, was a guy that had like no reviews or 1 review, and it went horribly, and it was bad for everybody, including the neighbors. And again, we apologize. Lori apologizes. But it's a lesson learned, and we got to move on from it.
Sure. Was that guy really arrested?
No, it was his dad, sadly. His dad came to visit him, and then I guess the sheriff just came to investigate a complaint of loud noises the night before and parking on the road. But when the sheriff went in, the guys kind of did this, whoa, and then the sheriff kind of went, something's wrong here, and then started asking for IDs, ran this, and then found that this guy had a warrant. Well,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's embarrassing. I mean, Lori's saying that's embarrassing, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I mean, it sucks, guys. You have a felon in your basement. That's
not fun.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But guests have been awesome. Other than that, there's some lessons learned. But like these interns from Northrop, they're awesome kids, and they're really responsible. And hopefully that'll be the theme going forward.
Sure. Tim, you were talking about addressing some things. Is there other things?
I think those were the two items that I thought would be good suggestions, is just requiring her to continue to live on site, and then to have that the fencing, whether it be a fence or some sort of boundary to prevent that trespass. So it's basically those two items, and of course all the other things that are required normally in the ordinance would still have to be adhered to. No change.
So that's what I was curious about. Do we have our noise ordinance written into the book that the residents will see?
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, you were asking for apologies.
Our last one. No.
Looking
Sorry,
at
general question. I
the
didn't.
Google Earth on this, it looks like they have a fence to the east of them, and there's a driveway to the west that kind of delineates the property line there. So
I
you've
think it
got
was
two
along that
good
driveway.
Well, the driveway's on the east side of Lori's house.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, I see.
But yes, and that's kind of been, that's always been the boundary line between the two properties. And so I suppose that a small decorative fence or something could go up there just to further delineate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Lori can't put any landscaping on her side because it's a driveway. It's just cement.
Yeah.
But some sort of fencing or something to that extent could go up.
Yeah.
So Aaron, I have one other question for you, and it's more of a find out question about our process here. So how long have you been renting it out as an Airbnb?
How long has it been rented out as an Airbnb? It was a little garbled. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's officially been going since September or October of 2019.
2019. And do you know if your mom received notification that we're going to be implementing this ordinance? And it should be the conditional use.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I can't
hear.
We're not hearing you, Taylor.
Taylor, you're gonna have to turn off Disney Plus, buddy.
Somebody can repeat that question for me.
I couldn't hear you.
Okay, well, I thought maybe it was on my side. Okay.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, were you aware that we had a city ordinance that required a conditional use and a business license be established so you can continue to operate an Airbnb?
Yeah, well, actually, Lori was not aware initially. She thought that you could just rent out your basement. And then somehow or another found out that, oh, there's actually, you have to get a permit for it. And then basically started doing all the things to comply with it. So it took a while to get there.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, right? Because when we first established the ordinance, we scoured Airbnb for anything in South Weaver. And I'm just wondering why your mom's residence didn't pop. Or maybe it did, and maybe we didn't get the proper notice out. So that's what I'm trying to.
We had a meeting with the city's attorney relatively recently, and then she agreed to delist it.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Is that what you're referring to? If you didn't find it on Airbnb, it's because she delisted it.
And that was just recently that she delisted it? Because I'm thinking more in line of when we stood up our ordinance. So I'm forgetting the time frame of that. But it would have been almost a year ago, maybe?
Well, it was May of 2019. The city council unanimously approved the ordinance to allow it. But after that, it took, and Chris, maybe you'll remember, but I think it took quite a while for the city to actually get the process up for the application.
That's exactly right. There was some time delay for everybody else to kind of fall into place with it. I remember in January when I did contact Ms. Drake regarding that big thing that happened at the house, and when Ms. Drake and I were talking, and I have to accept responsibility, just like I told Ms. Drake the other day. There was part of our conversation that sounded short-term rental. There was part of our conversation that sounded like, oh, she's just got a renter down there, whether it be family, whether it be whoever. We really didn't go into great detail with it. And I have to accept responsibility for my part. I did respond back to the original complainants, and it's public information, so I can say the Sand Zones, and that I thought it was short-term rental, and I directed Mrs. Drake to apply and get that going. So, and then I do believe it was May that she applied for that. I think, if my dates are correct.
Probably April, because the criteria, it's like starting any small business, and it's tough. Well, what do I get first? My business entity from the state, my business license from the city, my tax ID number. But she got her business entity from the state in January of 2020. And then had the rest of the documentation put together for April turn-in, turn that into Kim at the city office.
I didn't get her application until the 28th of May.
Okay, and I appreciate you indulging me there, because I just want to understand, because when we first did this, it seemed like, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, there were several Airbnb operations that we knew didn't make application when we stood up the ordinance. Like, we had reached out to them and everything else. And I'm trying to understand, in the future, if we have an Airbnb that sets up in South Weaver, how do we get them knowledge of the ordinance, get them through the conditional use process, so that we don't have this learning curve the next time this happens, where somebody doesn't know what the ordinance is, and we have all these complaints, and we have people who get, been out of shape about something. And I'm just trying to understand exactly timelines and how we can improve our process here.
Okay, so I appreciate that, but I want to stay on these guys' permit and move it along. But you're right, we need to have a way to do that.
No, I know we don't get opportunities to talk to these folks until we have these meetings. So I'm asking about the process.
And I think you're right. We need to figure out as a city. You're on the committee to do the new ordinances. Put that as an addition to the ordinances, that somebody at the city scour Airbnb and all the other websites for South Weaver deals every month and send them notice. I'm telling you, Chris just needs more work, and that's what we're going to do.
Add that to Chris's.
So, what happened in the past sounds like it's in the past. It's something that happened one time. And so I'm not willing to, give Lori a black eye on that. I don't think that's worth it. But,
and that's not what I'm suggesting at all.
Sure.
I'm
No, I
just trying to
appreciate that.
understand process.
Yeah, yeah, and I get that, but and you're right. We have a process problem with making sure people know what the law
Right, because
is.
really it almost sounds like it went on for 8-9 months before we realized that the resident realized that there's an ordinance in place.
Right,
So
right.
I'm just trying to understand it better. So thank you for.
No, I
allowing me
no,
to
I
take the
appreciate
time.
that. You're right, because that's a part that as a city we got to figure it out.
Yep.
I agree with that.
And that was an ordinance that is top of the charts that we'll be looking at.
Right. And so I have two things: parking and no more than 6 people in the Airbnb at a time, as additions to the condition to move forward. Is there anything else that the commission knows of or sees that we probably ought to add to this and move this forward?
Well, I would just those 2 items, just continue to require that she lives on site, and then also create some sort of a boundary, that designates her property and prevents the attractive nuisance, well, maybe not nuisance, but attractive desire to go onto the adjacent property. I don't know what you call that, but
Sure. So some kind of, let's call it boundary.
Delineation.
Boundary delineation.
well, we want to prevent the crossing over.
Right.
Yeah. Or at least discourage, people from exiting onto the neighbor's property.
Right.
So that would be my suggestion: is on-site, and then living and discouraging trespass onto the neighbors with some sort of landscaping or decorative fencing.
Is that something that can happen, Aaron?
My only concern is the vagueness of the request. So I don't want to commit to something that later somebody could say, well, you didn't do what the condition was. So if you're saying build a fence, then let's say that. I mean, a solid yellow line painted along the edge of the concrete might also be a delineation that would discourage somebody from going over. And I think for her benefit, if there's a condition being put in place, let's address it specifically. But frankly, I think the neighbors should have some say in that too, because it affects the use and the appearance of their property.
Yes, and that
Maybe
was.
they don't want to say, I don't know.
Yeah, if the neighbor is willing to sign off on not doing anything, then I'm fine with that. But otherwise, I would require some sort of, whether it be fencing or landscaping, to discourage trespass onto the neighbors.
Okay. Well, I mean, she can talk to them about that and see. It might have to be the specifics of this. I don't think could be addressed right now in this moment, but could be left as a condition that something about that will be done. That she could agree to for sure, because to talk to them and see what they want, what they think would be best, and then. But to be sure,
yeah, I mean, it's vague, and Chris, I mean, that's throwing something out there that you're going to try and enforce that actually was completed. That's the tough part, so tell me what kind of wording would be appropriate that would just require, some decorative fencing along that boundary, unless something else is submitted.
It's just concrete. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the, going out there and doing an inspection to make sure it's completed. I'm worried about the enforcement part of it.
And that's what, that's what I said, is the enforcement.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's going to be very difficult. I can assume that a neighbor could put up a camera and they could send me the evidence, and then we could send
I'm not saying the enforcement of somebody trespassing. I'm just talking about the fence being built.
that would be very difficult to, I'm just going to say this, trespassing onto a front lawn to be able to exit your vehicle and go back onto the concrete. That would be a very difficult thing for anybody to enforce, whether it be a peace officer or anything like that.
Right. That's why I said I'm not
Yeah.
requiring enforcement by you or by this condition that we're talking about right now.
Well, if there's no enforcement with it, then why have it as a?
That comes later. That's your responsibility later. But tonight, I'm just suggesting a condition of the fencing. And that's easy to see if it got put in or not. That's it.
Yes. And
that's
maybe,
a discouragement. To have a fence is a discouragement.
Yep.
That's
Maybe
all I'm
it's-
looking at.
maybe
I'm just
it's
looking at a
timeframe.
discouragement. I'm not looking at trying to monitor whether somebody's trespassing or not. No, I'm just trying to create a condition that would discourage somebody from trespassing. That's all I'm asking for.
Lori's saying she'll do that I mean, we have a funeral coming up in a few days, but if you can give us a couple weeks, she could get a fence up of some sort, some delineation.
Sure, and if she can work with the neighbor they say, you know what, let's not do that, and we can get that signed off, then no problem.
Okay.
Hey, Kim, will you let Gary into the meeting? He's in the waiting room.
Oh, yes. Done.
I mean, if somebody has another thought as far as discouraging trespass, I mean, it just seems to be a complaint by the neighbor, and I would like to discourage that.
I mean,
Otherwise, we're going to be back here again if they continue to do that.
I mean, there's a difference between a Nerf game breaking out versus getting out of the car door and walking on a little bit of grass. I mean,
huge difference.
The Nerf game, yeah, it's a little much, but I don't know if I'd have heartburn if someone walked on my grass a little bit while they were getting a suitcase out.
I don't see a problem with that either.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to deal with that, because I think that's a lot of expense and a lot of ugly just to make sure someone doesn't walk on a little bit of grass when they get out of a car. Is my thought. So
you got to ask, is it because it's a stranger? Because my little brother, my little brother parked his old crappy Blazer on that side driveway, and I'm sure he walked on the neighbor's grass every time he got out of it and got into it. And when we do snow removal for Mom, we blow the snow off her driveway and onto their property. And I mean, that's just kind of something that happens between neighbors, but maybe it's because Airbnb guests are strangers. But it's the Airbnb guests use it in a way that would be similar to the way the homeowner uses it.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah, you guys got a backyard that's fenced, if I recall, right?
Definitely.
And it's just going through a gate. I think I don't know if I'm, Tim, I apologize, but I don't know if I'm up for a fence as part of the condition.
I would just recommend some sort of discouragement.
Okay, well, can they just discourage it in a book, in their Airbnb book?
That would work.
And Lori says she'll discuss it with the next door neighbors and see what they would prefer, because if they have a preference and if it's doable, then there's no reason that can't happen.
Agreed.
Yeah, and not have it be the city's business, just between neighbors. I think that's the best way to do things.
That would be ideal.
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Yeah, if we ask them to put up a fence and everything and all that, then we're gonna have to look at the landscaping ordinance and the fencing ordinance and everything, how it complies with that, and that's going way over bounds on that.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. But I think just a discussion with the renters when they come in. Hey, make sure that please try to respect the neighbor's lawn, and they do a good job over there. And
I still think it needs to be a discussion with the neighbor, not just the renter.
I agree with that.
That's committed.
So,
Okay.
That'll happen.
Okay.
All right. I'm disgusted out on this. Is everybody else disgusted? Not disgusted.
Disgusted?
Had enough discussion. Can we move on?
I think we can, if you can tell me what wording you're looking for. Just that our applicant have a discussion with the neighbor as to a remedy for the trespass.
Or delineating the boundary.
Okay.
Well, we know the delineation is just the end of the driveway, right?
Yeah, but
Scratching the concrete.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good with that, Tim. After their family emergency and stuff, if they just shoot an email or a text to this city and say, hey Kim, we've decided to do this, and I'm good with that. I mean, I don't need things in writing.
If they
and stuff
notify
like that.
Chris on that they've discussed it, I think that should be sufficient.
Peace out. Yep. And just because Aaron, what happens here is once you get a conditional use and you start going, you're going down the track, then there's 3 strikes, right? It's in the ordinance, and so don't get strikes.
Right.
That's
Well,
the
and
way
that's
it's set up.
that's how you responded to Miss Hart's comment that actually it's in the city's and in the neighborhood's best interest to grant the permit, because then you've got some teeth. Then you've got some enforcement mechanisms.
No,
Whereas-
absolutely.
That is true.
Yep. So I don't see any reason why we can't go ahead and grant a conditional use with a few conditions here that we've discussed and move forward. So I would look for a member of the commission to shoot that out.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion to, are we recommending, or are we, does this get moved forward? Barry?
Stops here.
Yes. No,
It
this
stops
is,
here.
Is this a recommendation or an approval?
Approval. The ordinance says planning
Yeah.
commission approval. It doesn't say it goes to the city council.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the short-term rental conditional use for Snow Basin Destination operated by Lori Drake, located at 2345 East, 8100 South, subject to the short-term rental conditional use ordinance. Also subject to a 6-guest maximum, subject to the owner-operator living full-time on site, and subject to a report on a trespass discussion with the neighbor to our code enforcement. Is that what you are, Chris?
Yeah.
And then we'll get a report back from Chris at a later point when that can occur. Maybe we'll put a 30-day report on that, or a time frame on that.
Parking.
That discussion.
Parking for 4.
And yes, thank you. Forestall requirement for off-street parking.
Perfect. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Wes?
I second it.
Oh, okay. Let's call for a vote. Wes?
Yay.
Tim?
Aye.
Taylor?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Rob? Yes. Okay. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. That's just terrible news in this COVID day for sure. So
Thanks, guys.
we appreciate Lori. I've known her for a lot of years. So, but best of luck. So,
Thanks, Sean.
all right. Thank you.
All right.
See ya. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Now the fun begins.
Okay.
Gary's here, so it's tag team. I'm out, I guess.
Do you want to be out?
No, I'm good.
Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
It's all right. So next item on the agenda is the discussion of the 2020 general plan. I just have a question on a couple of things on the general plan, and then perhaps some of you have additional questions. In the text, I didn't see where in the general plan it talked about eliminating the connection from View Drive to 7800. Did I just miss that, or?
We just basically took it out, took the reference of that connection out. It's still on the map.
Yeah, we didn't eliminate it on the map, but we didn't put an emphasis on that. So we
There's-
don't want to negate the
Right.
possibility if it should happen to go through.
Yeah, we're showing just a regular residential street connection there with no emphasis on it whatsoever. And then we changed the emphasis, of course, to the other streets there that we talked about.
Okay, so the one I'm reading says View Drive currently dead ends on the east end at approximately 2370 east. To facilitate better traffic flow in the area, the road should connect to 7800. Well, I thought we decided that's not what we wanted.
Well, that should be gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the other, I was thinking of, oh heavens, the other connection we were changing. I thought we determined we were going to leave that in there, but we leave the connection. But well, it's kind of the same situation. We had that in two places where we decided to leave the connection there, but change the routing of the collector road.
Oh, this is not the Starks property piece.
No, I know. We did the
yeah.
same thing on this piece. Did we not?
No, I think we eliminated it out altogether. That's
No,
the way I remember it.
I don't remember it that way. I remember still having that on, but it's our collector is not designated to go that way, as Barry was indicating.
Right.
And there's no emphasis on having that be a connection at all by the city. But we wouldn't want to remove the fact that you have a couple of stubs, and if some development happened to come through, then let them connect it if they want. But there's no emphasis, it's not needed. Just like any other road, we have hundreds of roads through the city that there's no emphasis for a collector to go through there. They may go through at some point. They're stubs and they could connect at some point. So that was, I think, what I remember.
That's the way my notes read from that meeting. So if you want to change it, we can certainly change that, but that's the way I came away from the last meeting.
Okay.
With my
I may have misunderstood. I apologize. Because I know that a group of citizens wrote a letter asking that not happen, and so I think we agreed that was probably appropriate because of the size of the road that it would be connecting to, View Drive would be connecting to. But if I misunderstood, that's my bad.
No, I agree with the residents that shouldn't be the emphasis. That shouldn't be a collector.
Rob, that's what we talked about.
Okay. All right, I'm good with that. The other thing is I'm still not comfortable with the way we're putting 1900 East up to Layton. And so here's what I propose. That in the section of the general plan that's talking about 1900 East altogether, let me get it there. Hang on. Now I've clicked too many buttons and I think I closed it. Doggone, I did. Hang on, let me get it back up. Sorry.
Were you looking at the map or the
Nope,
description?
just the language, I'm just looking at the language.
1900 East.
Yep.
where it states 1900 East Street is an extremely important collector road.
Yes, that's it. So on, and I'm not, that 1900 East Street is line 719 for everybody. Am I on the right one?
I have 668.
I have, now, there are two versions. One's the clean version and one shows the changes.
I'm showing the one.
Rob is looking at the one with the changes on it.
Okay.
That's the one I want to see.
I need to go to the newer one then.
So here's what I'd like to see happen on that, because I understand that there's been an uproar and more or less divided the city in half, with everybody mad at everybody, which is very sad. I don't like that. But what I want to do is I want the description in the just in the language, not on the map, to indicate that the road does exist in its current form. And so I propose that we write, currently South Weber has one access road to Layton. The road is currently used as an access to the city water tank. The road off 1900 East is owned by the city. It's 60 foot wide, has some utilities, fire hydrant and storm drain already installed, and has a road base for its surface. Just so other planning commissions, other city councils in the future know that road does exist already. Not that it's a debate over if we should go to Layton or if we shouldn't. The road already exists to our water tank. And that's all I ask.
Okay, let me just point out at the last meeting, our decision at that point, and we can change it, but at that point, the decision was to just take all reference to that portion of 1900 out.
I appreciate what you're saying, Barry, but what we're doing is having another discussion about it.
Right.
Because I don't think doing that is the right thing.
Okay.
What I'd like to say is what exactly is there. No pretense, no nothing. I just want to say, this is what's there. End of story. So that's what I would like to do. How does everybody else feel about that?
So you're talking about the dirt road that goes up to just the water tank?
Correct.
Not 1900 East.
Okay, we don't have to call it 1900 East, just the dirt road up to the water tank.
Basically, you're just wanting to describe what's there.
Correct.
Yeah, and I don't know what you want to label it. I mean, it's not really 1900 East at this point. 1900 East goes up the hill and curves.
To Deer Run Drive.
Right.
We could call it South Bench Drive.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, you can call it access road to the water tank. I don't care.
Yeah, I think you need to call it something like that. I'm not even sure why we need to, because this is our transportation section.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to have a paragraph about the access road to the water tank?
Because we have other access roads to water tanks. Do we want to refer to those as well?
No, because this particular access road is already owned by South Weber City, is already 60 feet wide, already has utilities in it, and already has a road base. That's not the case with other access roads. And this is simply so other commissions and other city councils know that that's what's in that road.
That needs to be in the general plan versus just ask the engineer.
I didn't know that that was the case until just now.
I believe we have all of that on our GIS databases, all of that information. It's already there.
Yeah, I don't know how that applies to the general plan. I don't know that I'm opposed to having a paragraph that talks about the condition of the access road to the water tank.
So I'm not opposed to it. I don't know what it adds, but I'm not opposed to it. You're just describing what's there.
Right.
So if it has real value to a future planning commission or city council, it would be also to include some of the public comment that we received on it. That there was concerns about hillside stability, that there's concerns about the safety of cars coming up and down a steep slope. And just to nominally say, we acknowledge that there's a road there and this is what it's built to, and these are the concerns with it. So the last thing Rob, correct me if I'm wrong in the direction you want to take it, is that we don't acknowledge it and that we come down this path again in another 5 to 10 years. And we're like, well, a really good idea would be to put a road up to Layton. And I think within at least a document like the general plan, we acknowledge what we've gone through, the public comment that we've received, and what that road is today. And just to the conversation that we had the last go around, we're not recommending that there's going to be a connection, a paved connection to Layton, and we're not opening up this road, but this is what it is today. This is the direction that we took on it during this iteration of the general plan.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm not opposed to it, but I really don't see the value. And if we start, well, I don't know, I'll leave it there.
So I will say that when we first started down this road and we had that working group meeting on the general plan, there was a lot of, hey, you said this, somebody else said that. The understanding was that this road wouldn't happen. And I think there's value in a general plan to say, this is what was considered during the general plan update. These are the comments that we received back. And this is the state of the road today. And that's it. Because I think what I experienced in that working group meeting was a lot of confusion. And it really started us off on the wrong foot on how we wanted to try to talk about our transportation plan.
Yeah, why not state what the current condition is of that road? I mean, because it has been a big issue, so it doesn't seem like it'd be a problem. Have a separate paragraph, state the current condition, and no changes have been made or recommended.
Yeah, I'm not recommending anything onto the map or anything like that.
Yeah,
I just think that a road has been built in the past, 10 years ago. I think it's 10, I don't even know how many years. We as a city have already invested in that. And so we need to use that as a marker saying, hey, it's there. We chose not to put it on a general plan this year, but maybe into the future.
Well, I don't even know if I'd say that. I wouldn't say maybe in the future. I wouldn't say that. I would just say no recommendations are made to changes.
That's fine too. I'm fine with that.
Could we refer to the questionnaire that came back, and that the vast majority of the people answering the questionnaire recommended no connection to Layton from 1900 East?
I say we just.
I'm trying to keep the politics out of it. That's what I'm trying to do.
I just say that we reviewed it through this general plan and no changes are being recommended.
Yep.
If somebody wants to see the review, they can pull up all this data and see what the review was.
So we're having the same conversation we had in the last meeting.
Yes, we are.
We are.
We are. Two of us are not comfortable with the way that went.
Everybody agrees on that.
So I'm okay with stating the separate paragraph, stating the current condition, and no recommendations through the process were made to make any changes.
I can live
Sounds
with
good.
that.
I would be happy to craft some language and stick it in there. It'll
I'll
probably be
email you what I just read, and you can make it pretty, if that's okay.
okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Rob, will you email that to me too? So I
Yes.
put it in the minutes. Thanks.
Yes.
You can make it pretty too.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
Those are the two things I had. Is there any other discussion on the general plan?
Why are we still having the potential mixed use in there? And also the multifamily? I thought we were going to drop that. That's still in the updated version.
that's also a conversation we had last meeting, right?
Yeah, we were gonna drop it from the general plan, and it's still in there.
Well, we still have the concept of a mixed use in ordinance only, right? So
Right.
there was the option that we've
We have an
wanted to
ordinance with it?
explore.
Is there an
Yeah.
ordinance?
Yeah,
Well,
development agreement.
So
I-
it's the,
yeah, what
Go
we're
ahead, Barry.
proposing is a change to the zoning ordinance that would allow for negotiated agreement on what happens on two parcels in South Weaver, the Paul property and the Stevens property. It may or may not include a mixed use. So we haven't taken it out because we decided that those were negotiable items.
So what are you saying, Wes?
The vast majority of the people that responded to the survey did not want the multifamily and the mixed use.
So are you saying that if,
We ought to listen, what I'm
Some
saying is
kind
we ought
of-
to listen to what the people are saying.
well, I agree with that, but what I'm saying is, are you saying that if some development comes to the Peterson property, is it Peterson? Sorry. Stevens property, that includes a small mixed use type of thing, but really works well, you'd be against it? I mean, small, like I'm saying, maybe, I don't know, 10 units as a caretaker to a business or something, you'd still be against that?
It would depend upon what it looks like.
That's why it's got to stay in there.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's that word depends.
I'm
I
not
mean-
sure, Wes, correct me if I'm wrong, are you seeing something that references mixed use? Because it's not on the map as mixed use. I know it's a matter of
On
semantics,
the,
not legal.
yeah, the original, or the last unedited edition, line 251 says, item 7, 2.91 acres in potential mixed use times 25 developable units equals 72 developable units. We're saying that in what we've got in the general plan.
But that's that's not the clean version. What is the clean version?
It's still in the clean
No,
version also.
It's still in there.
Yeah. It's still in the clean version.
What
That
page are you?
that reference is to the Lofts property. That 2.91 acres is the Lofts property, and the 72 units is what's being proposed there. So even though they don't exist, but we have to account for them in our dwelling unit counts.
Okay. All right. Barry got another question on the noise,
Noise.
the
Okay.
noise study from Hill Air Force Base.
Oh, you're on Hill Air Force Base. All right.
Yeah. Why are we using 75 as the noise contour?
Because that's what's always been recommended in their compatible land use studies.
I started looking
75.
at some of the air installation reports on this, and they're saying that 65 to 74 decibel reading is where the land use controls are needed. So what land use controls do we have between 65 and 74? I've come across 5 studies so far,
Yeah.
and they all say that. Shouldn't we drop that to 65 instead of 74?
Well, we could. Yes, we can do whatever we want there. But there's it's a complicated factor. For
It's
one
gonna
thing,
be-
our planning for years and years has been that 75 LDN line.
Right, and it's
You
just
change
been
that to
an arbitrary
65.
line in the past.
If you change that to 65 now, you're going to include a lot of existing residents within that area.
There's a lot
Um,
of studies that are out there showing that the 65 to 74 additional attenuation is strongly recommended.
Yeah, that's what they're saying there is you need more sound deadening measures taken in buildings where people are going to congregate, in homes or in schools or things of that nature. They're
Do
not
we have
saying you
something-
can't build there.
Now, should we have something in the general plan that describes that area?
Not the general plan, but maybe the city ordinance. Because we've identified it as something that we'll need a plan for.
Yeah, but there's nothing in the general plan that talks about 65 to 74.
No, there isn't.
Perhaps we need a paragraph in there that says numerous military studies have indicated that the decibel rate of 65 to 74 requires additional type of acoustics and stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, Wes, why I'm reluctant to go there. And that's because the new noise contours that have come out virtually exclude everything in South Weaver. There would be no impact to South Weaver whatsoever. In early discussions on the general plan, we determined we were going to leave things the way they are, even though the noise contours that have been, the projected noise contours that are now going into the latest compatible land use study, they won't show any impact to South Weaver. They pull back, all of those noise zones are basically along the bluff.
Yeah, those are based on computer models and they've never been verified.
Well, so was the old one. The old one was based on computer models as well.
Right. Well, then we all know that, and we stated in the general plan that the F-35 is much noisier.
Yeah.
So we should address that fact by adding the 65 to 74. And also the city should be going out and with the base and verifying that.
But the 65 to 74, that's
a big
based
area.
on what we have is based on the old modeling,
right,
which is not for the F-35.
Right.
So I don't know how we can include that now and say that's to address the F-35.
Well, there's more than just F-35s landing on the base.
Right.
So I'm not sure how you just single out a single plane.
Well, some of the other studies have been done on F-14s and other aircraft. And they all come out with the same thing, saying that the 65 to 74 is an area of moderate impact where some land use controls are needed. We've got quite a few military studies on that.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we should address that 65 to 74 zone based upon all of these military studies.
And I'm a little, I hear what you're saying, Wes. I'm just not clear what that means. Address it in what way? What do we say? What do we require?
Just add a paragraph in there saying numerous military studies have identified the 65 to 74 as an area of moderate impact where some land use controls are needed. That's all we need to say.
So, but then wouldn't we also have to update our sensitive lands map?
I think we would.
Can we just say if you live at the west end, it's going to be really loud sometimes?
You can say that
right on the east end.
No worries.
I mean, really, Wes, I understand what you're saying, but nothing's going to change. It's going to be loud. People who move here or build here,
yeah.
If they don't know that already, they will learn that very quickly.
Very fast. But we should identify that it's something that the military has pointed out.
So maybe this recommendation that we reference the air insulation compatible use zone tables and not make reference so much to the noise zones and noise contours within our general plan, but we reference it back to those compatible use zones. And that I really don't want to update our sensitive lands map because it's pretty much all pink as is. If
Well,
we go out,
we don't have to update that. We just have
No.
to state in there that this area, which is indicated on the map, is
Yeah.
kind of the area that, we need, people need to be aware of.
So are you, I guess is the purpose of this, Wes, what you're driving at, to just a public awareness kind of thing?
Probably, yeah.
but if we're realistic about trying to get noise attenuation in any future buildings being built to actually address the concerns, then we're going to have to identify it on the map so that when we get a development proposal, we know that we're going to have to look at that.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess from what I'm seeing on the sensitive lands map, does that incorporate the 65 decibel range? Or is that only going out to 75, you said?
Right now, it only goes out to 75.
Yeah.
So
The map that's in the office there goes out quite down to about 50, I think.
right, and
It shows the other noise zones, but in our general plan, the sensitive lands boundary there that follows in that on the west end of town follows the 75 LDN and the what is it, the crash zone or the accident potential zone.
Yeah.
Mhm. So what I don't have in front of me is an idea of what does that 60 decibel range go out to, and what does that translate to on our sensitive lands map?
Virtually the whole city.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I say, I'm ready to wrap up the general plan, put a bow tie on it and send it to city council. I understand what you're saying, Wes, but we've got to be done.
Yeah, I know.
We've got to move on.
Okay.
So I mean, if I can make just one recommendation, and that would be we're going to have a joint land use study or a compatible use plan coming out here. I don't know when that's going to happen, but those recommendations could definitely be folded into an amendment to the general plan if we so choose to.
Absolutely. They're starting into public meetings or public open houses, I believe, in September.
Good. So
The
maybe we don't have
base
to
is
wait too
having
long.
that.
I'm
No,
sorry,
actually,
what was it?
The base is having that in September.
There's
It's actually not the base.
It's not the base. There's a study, it's being sponsored by Layton City and we're a participant. And it's an independent, it's a consultant that's doing the study. The base, but the federal government's paying for the bulk of it, yes.
But they will look at our land use code and determine if there's any incompatibilities and make recommendations on how we can change that. So I think that would speak right to Wes's wanting. It will just model it to the F-35. So we can definitely amend, but I think there's more conversation coming and we can probably move forward as is.
Well,
and wait for that.
all right, I'm going to dive into this for a second. What?
What do you mean? What?
I don't understand. Airplanes fly over, they are noisy.
Right. So there are serious impacts to the base. If there's too many complaints about noise and flying operations and everything else, that is taken into consideration when they look to close bases. So the DoD is very proactive to ensure that the local municipalities know about the noise contours, that they know that there's a set recommendation for land uses adjacent to airfields, so that the local community can develop in a way that doesn't severely impact the operations at Hill Air Force Base.
So we're going to have the military telling the city how to develop our land use plan.
Nope.
Pardon?
They're purely recommendations. We can do with that as we will, but we also have to recognize that the second largest employer in the state is on the other side of the hill from us. And if
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
Right.
really? You want to kick that dog that pays the bills?
Right. So that's basically what it says is, hey, please acknowledge the fact that if we have too much encroachment, we won't be able to continue operations if there's ever a base realignment or closure. So we just want to be good neighbors, right? So-
Wasn't that part of the reason that there were so many easements purchased on the lands around the base to prevent that encroachment?
So yes, the
Yes.
state of Utah went out and purchased those.
Right. So the state of Utah controls those easements and not us. And those
Correct.
easements prevent any development around the base within that particular area. And that was
That's-
all done to prevent the base from closing. So
Mhm.
that's already in existence there.
Exactly.
That's correct. And that was one of the things we took into account early on in our discussions in the general plan, was that the fact that those easements were controlling more than our ordinances were.
That's right.
And we didn't really have to go into great detail on protecting that.
Yeah, but you bring up BRAC again, and I think the base is pretty well protected from closure. We're just talking, right now we're talking about hiring 1,500 new employees for Northrop Grumman up there, and you're talking about expanding the UTTR out there. Hill Air Force Base is going to be around for a long time.
I hope you're right, but never assume.
We're pretty much different than places like.
Okay, let's move on. Is there any other more discussion on the plan?
I did have one other question on the transportation plan, and maybe we covered this in the last meeting, but I was looking at the end of Cottonwood Drive. Let me get there so I'm not misquoting this. So it was right at the end of Canyon Drive. I'm sorry, at about 2050 East.
What line are you on?
I'm not on a line per se. I'm just looking
Oh.
at the map.
Oh,
So it might have been one of those times where, my internet usage didn't allow me to hear the conversation. But I'm curious to know, did we ever contemplate a connection from Canyon Drive to that future road into Uinta?
Into where?
Into Uinta. So we have it coming off of 7400 South going north into Uinta, right? So my question is, then I know the retention ponds are there, but there is still developable land as you move to the south of the retention ponds. And that seems like a logical connection point, but I couldn't recall if we ever considered that in any other revision of the general plan.
well, that connection is still shown on the transportation map, I believe. Let's find it here.
So it looks like maybe we could have changed it, how that connection happens.
That connection was put on there because the mayor of Uinta and the mayor of South Weaver said, gee, we ought to have a road connecting us there.
Right, and I'm
And
not
if you
so
look
much
at the,
talking
if you look at
about
the
that road
future
into
plans of UDOT, they have no interest in that road whatsoever.
So I'm not so much talking about the connection into Uinta as I'm just referencing where I'm trying to talk about Canyon Drive continuing to the east.
Oh, I see. You
Oh,
think
that's
we
across
should
the
put a
Tension
red?
Basin.
You think we should put a red dash line over there from Canyon Drive and make that connection?
Yeah, I think so. And not so much over the aquifer recharge ponds, but you jog it to the south and then to the east. Because as I look at that in the aerial image, I mean, that's a pretty substantial piece of property. And
Yeah. Yeah, you're
I
right.
think you'd want to have a road there. But again, I didn't want to have the conversation if it had already been removed from the map in the previous version. I just couldn't recall.
No, we didn't talk about that. I don't recall ever talking about that. And that's a good suggestion, in my opinion, that we show that connection.
I don't know if I would add it at this point. Because what do the people on Canyon Drive think? We might be opening up another can of worms potentially. I don't know. I mean, there's been so much discussion on other roads. I would hate to add something at this point where we're trying to
So-
wrap things up.
We either do it now or we do it under another general plan revision, right? And I guess I'd rather do it now, is what I'm saying.
Well, what's the likelihood of that connection being done in the next 10 years? The connection to Uinta.
That I can't answer, like I can't answer any of the other connections or roads within the city. What I'm trying to say is that it seems like a logical connection point. And I get the fact that The residents along Canyon Drive may not like that. And I just didn't know the end state, right? If we're gonna say that that land use adjacent to Canyon Drive will never drive a different development, and therefore we don't need a different connection, great. But I'm just trying to see on the land use plan, maybe we kind of leave it undone a little bit. There's a gray area around a portion of that, and I don't know. This section of the general plan has always just been a little bit of a.
That's the area that includes our SOB.
It does. It does. So, I mean, I get your point, Gary. I don't think that I'm not understanding of the fact that we haven't discussed this at this point, and we haven't had it out for public comment. But definitely there will be an opportunity within the pilot getting an opportunity to talk about it when it goes to city council.
I think we ought to have some discussion with Weber Basin Water Conservancy District on their future plans for that.
And the way I'm
Get their
proposing it,
opinion.
is we go around it. So
Okay, so well, wait a minute, hang on. Just draw the line through it and do it. And I'm not worried about, this is a general plan again. We're just draw the line. If that looks like we're missing something there, and let's move on. I don't want to call Weber Basin to find out what they think. I just, if it looks like a professional planner says, hey, yeah, we missed a line there, we probably should put a road, then let's put the line in and move on.
I'm okay with that.
Is that good?
I'm okay. It is a plan.
Yeah.
We're not laying concrete. It's a plan. So I'm okay with that.
And there's a stub there, so I mean, any future development would connect to that stub and need to go somewhere. So it might as well
Right.
designate where that needs to go.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Taylor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else on the general plan?
Let me just make sure I'm perfectly understanding what you're asking to be done, to be changed at this point. You want a description added for the dirt road that goes up to the water tank, indicating that we're not recommending paving that as a connection to Layton. We're not recommending any changes to it, just a description. Add that to the transportation section. And then on the map, the vehicle transportation map, we're going to make this connection from Canyon Drive over to the road that connects to Uinta. Those are the only two changes I've noted at this point.
Going back to what Rob brought up first. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the name of that road.
View Drive and 7800?
Yeah, because we did talk about taking that the connection out.
Yeah, I
So
think
did
you're
we
right,
decide
because
to put it back in, or
it's not shown on here. That it is not shown on the transportation plan as a connection.
yeah, but in the text,
It says it.
still there.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
I think we just need to take that text out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we've identified it to be removed off of the map.
Thanks, Gary. I couldn't remember and I couldn't back it up. So
No, that's okay. I thought we finalized it before, but I just want to make sure.
no, I appreciate that. Okay. I'm going to move on then. For anybody that has comments, Gary, you got anything?
Just apologize for being late. Thanks for your patience, and glad I could jump on when I did.
Totally fine. Tim?
No, I didn't have anything further. Thanks.
Thanks. Wes?
Nothing.
Thanks. Taylor?
Just if you wanted me to provide a quick update on our initial conversation with the ordinances update.
Okay.
If that's beneficial to the rest of the commission or not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, let's hear it.
So initially, it looks like we're going to go into Title 10, which is our land use codes. And we have some prioritization of how we're going to, or which codes we're going to look at first. And it looks like it's going to be chapter 2, which is a lot of our administrative functions, and how we handle different actions, whether they be legislative or administrative. And then, Gary, I'm going to forget this, so I might need your help. I think it was chapter 5, which is our actual zoning
Yes,
chapter.
5 is
Okay,
the zoning
great.
chapter.
And then I'm drawing a blank on the last one. I believe it was the one for short-term rentals. Was our next priority.
Short-term rentals was in there. Conditional uses, I thought, came before short-term
Oh,
rentals.
maybe. Yeah, I
that's
think you're right. So the tempo of this is, it's going to be rather furious, and we'll see how this goes. But we're already under review of chapter 2. We've established a bi-monthly meeting. Bi-monthly. So once we jump into our review, we're going to have about 30 minutes to address the comments that we have made on that certain chapter, make a recommendation, and then take our homework assignments for that next chapter, discuss, have a brief overview of it, and then move on to the next one. So we hope to be able to keep a lot of forward momentum on this, not get bogged down in too many details. But that's the expectation. And then hopefully as we review chapter 2, we get a better understanding of how we're going to be providing public notice and comment and the approval process to each one of these ordinances. So did I miss anything on that? Any other board members?
I think you got it.
That sounds good.
I appreciate you guys doing that. I can't imagine trying to do that in city council or in a planning commission meeting. It's good that, you know, the staff and a few board members run through that and get a recommendation to the planning commission and then on the city council. Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
I was kind of worried about that. So appreciate you guys and your service on that. That's all I have. Staff have any more comments?
Just a question now. We took no action on the general plan. So you're wanting to see this come back to you before you actually take action with these changes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
It won't take long to make these changes, so we'll bring it back as soon as we possibly can. I know we're going to have a special meeting. I don't know if we can tack it on to that or not, but
Rob, why are we bringing it back?
Because it's not on the agenda to push it through the city council. So, Barry, I'd rather not put it on that other meeting. That's the Lofts meeting.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I need to, and Kim maybe back me up on that. And I think you all filled out the survey of when you would work, and it looks like the 27th of August at 6 p.m. is when that special meeting will be. And
Correct.
it is just the Lofts. So put that in your calendar.
Yeah, I haven't sent out the invites because I've been waiting for one review to come back, and then I'll send out public notice and I'll send you guys the meeting request at the same time.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you wanting to hold off as long as you can and get it a complete packet, but I appreciate the fact I can get it on my calendar so I know. So I think everybody else as well. Okay.
How are we going to look at that? Are we looking at it as a brand new or an update or what?
Well, it is a brand new preliminary.
Brand new preliminary.
Correct.
So
Yeah, we'll have
basically
public
starting
comment
over from
on it.
Scratch.
Well, we haven't worked on it. It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a brand new preliminary for you guys.
It's never
Staff
come.
has seen it several times.
See, I've never seen it, so.
Yeah. We're trying to get all the kinks worked out before you guys ever see it the first time. This is the 4th submittal of their preliminary.
Okay. If there isn't anything else, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Rob, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Have a great evening. Give you the rest
Blair,
of your
how's
evening
the
back.
fishing up there? No, Blair's not there.